to our third webinar, today with the topic Citizen Science in Galapagos. We will take a couple of minutes to get everywhere online, so give us 1 second to be live. So, perfect. So, Kate, you let me know if we are everywhere good to go to start.
We're live on all 4 platforms.
Perfect.
So all set.
Then, again, very warm welcome to the webinar today. I would like to introduce first everyone that you see below us before we start with our actual presentation. So we do have Kate that you already heard. So Kate is supporting the Galapagos shark diving since over 2 years now in social media. So everything that you see on social media is coming out of her hands, as well as sometimes when I'm at sea, she takes over and also responds. So if you travel with us, you probably already had contact with her. And then you see 4 more faces, and that are faces that are traveled with Galapagos shark diving. Some, like Maria, traveled once with us in Galapagos as well as Antarctica. Laura traveled with us in Cocos as well as Galapagos. Jeremy traveled with us in Galapagos as well as Russia Hampat. And Jean actually traveled with us in Russia Hampat and 4 times in Galapagos. So Galapagos is a place that definitely bugs you to come back. So let's go into the topic right now. We will mute everyone for now. And then when our presentation is finished, we will get everyone back. So let's do that first. Very good. And then let's share the screen, get into the presentation, and let's talk about citizen science on a Galapagos dive liveaboard. First, I would talk a little bit more about what is citizen science. It's a big word, but what is behind that? So citizen science projects are actually projects where every one of us can participate and collect data. So when you're collecting data, it creates a baseline information that we need about animals, about flora, fauna. And this citizen science project that we're focusing in today will be more located underwater because that's the nature of the dive liveaboard we're talking about. However, citizen science projects are all over the world. They are on land, underwater. So there are so many projects worldwide where you can participate. It doesn't matter if you're a diver or not, where you collect data, what then can be used by scientists. Right now, it is that 4% of the oceans are protected. 4%, what's nearly nothing. And in order to get protected areas within the ocean, within the land as well as national parks, you need information. And to get information, you need the baseline information. Where are the animals going? Where do they mate? Where do they give birth? To have the possibility to protect these areas. But in order to do so and to know, you need data. You have to create facts. And this data and facts you then can take and go to governments and to fight for protected areas. And that is the data that you can collect. And it doesn't matter what you're working, what you studied. It is just by observing, by sometimes just making a photo, you can collect data that then helps us as researchers or other researchers, depending where you're going, to then create facts like that and have a foundation that we then can use to create protected areas. So that is a citizen science project where you collect data either in your free time or on your holidays, but you also, with projects like that, learn more about the animal that you're looking at, the environment that you're seeing, so you get an understanding of what you're seeing and where you are and of the environment itself. And you can take actually an active role to support the conservation of this area. Why does it matter? I touched already a little bit on the points why it is so important. It is important that we know where the crucial areas are. Where do, for example, where sharks mate? Where do they give birth? Where the little youngs live for the first years? We don't know, but we need to know where they're going to maybe have an idea where those areas are in order to be able to protect it. Because if we are able to protect areas where they give birth, we will be able to protect a species that might be extinct in a few years. When you as a volunteer are gathering such information, you actively contributing to their conservation, obviously. And whale sharks, what I talked about, but many other species are endangered. So we're talking about manta rays, we're talking about sea turtles, we're talking about molars, etc., where we often don't have any information, and we do need information to protect endangered species. Endangered to fishery, to vessel strikes, to pollution, climate change, to name a few. So there are many reasons why animals like that are endangered. And the ocean health, so the ecosystem. So if the animals within the ecosystems not doing well or going extinct, you have the whole balance of an ecosystem suddenly go off. And the ocean health is important because it is a provider of our oxygen. So the ocean produces 50 to 80% of the oxygen that you are breathing. So without the ocean, we don't have a foundation to live. So it is important that we protect the ocean, and it is a matter for us all. Then, as I said, citizen science, we only will introduce a couple of projects today, but it is worldwide. So it doesn't matter where you're going and which holiday you're going, or maybe where you're living. There will be a lot of citizen science projects around you. So have a look, and you can help everywhere, basically, where you're going to produce data to support the ecosystem and biodiversity. You can get information, and I often like to say that, a scientist can only be on one place. In our case, for example, we're studying whale sharks in the Galapagos, but we are in the places where we see them up in Darwin for 2 weeks of the year. What is happening in the other 50? In the other 50 weeks, we are not up there. We can't collect the data, but we have every week divers coming up to this area who can collect data, who can give us the round picture that we need in terms of migration and population, how often we see them, etc. So when we are able to harness this power of all the divers that are coming up there, we as the scientist, researcher, we actually get a whole picture of it. And it is, as I said, worldwide, and is not only regional, so very good. Citizen science obviously also gives you the possibility of education. In order to participate in citizen science project, I feel you always get a little bit more involved with the animals. You have a deeper understanding of the ecosystem, but also of the animal that you observing a little bit more. It's a hand-on involvement that you have on the trips, because you have to count, you have to take photos. So it is a deeper understanding that you gain about the animals, but also of the ocean as ecosystem in general. And it does help you to obviously talk about it, because when you're going home, you definitely will talk about your experiences, but you also can, give your engagement, your power, your love for the ocean to your friends and family when you talk about it, and create awareness with that. Let's talk about a few of the programs. The first one, of course, I would like to talk about whale sharks, because it is a hard project that we do have. You can identify each individual whale shark. So like we humans have a fingerprint on our fingers, the whale shark has a fingerprint on their side, left and right, where you see a very nicely pattern. So you see dots all over the place, and this pattern is unique to each individual whale shark. So if you manage to get a photo from this left or right side, you can upload this photo. And that gives the scientist that is studying the whale shark the possibility to identify it and to see where it's sighted the next time. So we can suddenly have information about migration. Where is this whale shark going? How often does it come back to a site? How is the population dynamics? Now talking about residency, how high is returns rate? How high is the mortality rate? So how does it compare to former years? And to create a baseline data, we need exactly that. We need a method to monitor an animal where suddenly technique may not help. So we're using, as scientists, sometimes satellite techs, but they have their limits. And there is a technique with a simple photo to track an animal all over the world. How does it work? You take the photo, obviously always very good if you have a 90-degree angle, but it's not always possible. So this photo, what you can see on the right-hand side, would be a perfect photo. And that you can upload to a worldwide global data bank, where then each science group, depending which area you're working in, can go in and can get the data out. So we are using it as basically possibility to get data and to have our studies a little bit further to get information about migration. Should you have the fortune that you maybe traveled already to other places where you saw whale sharks swimming or snorkeling or diving, then old photos are still usable. So look through your photos when you already swam or snorkeled with whale sharks. If you got a similar photo from the site, it's still possible to upload. So don't be shy, go on sharkbook.ie and there you would upload your photo. So you can help to increase knowledge about the sharks. The same with green sea turtles. Often people do not know that green sea turtles are as endangered as whale sharks. There are not many. When you're going diving in the Galapagos, we're very fortunate to see a lot of green sea turtles, and they as well have a pattern on their head. You see it on the right-hand side in the picture. The pattern of their head is their fingerprint. So if you get a photo of their head, it is usable to identify each individual green sea turtle and to monitor their migrations as well. And if you have a possibility to see their movements, their migrations, you also get an idea of population. So it's very important to have those things. And as I said, researchers often have only the possibility to have a couple of days in their places where we can see them, but divers in the Galapagos come every week. So if you got a photo, the same is everywhere else. So if you happen to see a green sea turtle, for example, in Russia Humpad or somewhere else, and you got a good photo, upload it to the global data bank, the Wild Book for Sea Turtles, iot.wildbook.org. So that is also, again, you don't have to search for any regions. There's one webpage where you can upload all your pictures that you have, and then each scientist group can go into this system and pull out their information to analyze it. The good thing on such platforms is also that you can stay in contact. So you will get an information when your green sea turtle or your whale shark that you saw is resighted somewhere else. So you get an information about that as well. The same as with manta rays. It's not always easy, but you see on the right-hand side, the belly is what we want from a giant Pacific manta ray or manta rays in general, where you have the fingerprints. So you see the nice pattern over here. That is the fingerprint of the manta ray, and you have in the same picture the sex of the ray. So you have ID and sex, and that is obviously a dream for every scientist to have a study, obviously, not only on the pattern, but also on the sex that you can see in certain areas. So that is a perfect shot over here where you can see the pattern. It's not always the easiest photo to get. However, that is what every researcher would love to have. There's, again, one global data bank that you can use. It's called mantamatcher.org, and there you can upload your photo of the belly of the manta. Again, here it's similar. You can track your animal. You will get an information when it's resighted, and researchers, on the other hand, have the possibility to follow the animal, make analyses about their migrations as well as population in certain areas. There were a couple of programs that were underwater, but as I said, there are also as many, if not even more, programs on land. So here's one where you can, from a boat out, help already citizen science programs. And Happy Whale, for example, is again a program that is worldwide, so it doesn't matter if you see a humpback whale or orca in Canada or in Galapagos or somewhere else. It's one data bank called happyworld.com where you upload your photo. Depending on the species, I only have today 2 photos, one from a humpback whale and one from the orcas. So the humpback whale, as you see in the upper picture, it's the fluke of the whale. So the underside of the fluke of the tail is important. That is their fingerprint. You see here's a nice pattern of their fluke as well as on the underside. That is their fingerprint, what we need. For orcas that you can see in the Galapagos as well as in other places, obviously, you have the dorsal fin. The area around the dorsal fin is very unique to each orca. Obviously, the eye patch is important as well to define which type of orca it is, but it is very important to have the dorsal fin. And it is often important to also have the full animal. I'm always talking just about the ID shot, the fingerprint. Of course, that is the most important thing, but you also want to have a full picture if you can, because that helps us as researchers to make sure that next time we see the same whale, we 100% can identify it correctly. It helps if it has scratches, scars. With whales, it's good if you have the head when it comes out of the water. So there are certain bits and pieces of a whale or of other species that are important. So if you manage to get also a full picture of the animal, that is very, very helpful indeed. So, and then I want to finish with one more program, and it's the shark count program that we have mainly in Galapagos. It is originated in Galapagos, but expanded now to mainland Ecuador, Cocos Island in Costa Rica, as well as Mexico. This is a program where researchers, or now several groups of researchers, because we have it for different animal types, try to get an overview of the population size in Galapagos. We're trying to get an overview of migration, so how do they move, how does it vary from month to month, how effects like El Niño, La Niña, and so on influences the numbers of animals, for example, that we see. Because as you sometimes can't imagine, many things we do not know. We still do not know what is the worldwide population of whale sharks or hammerheads, etc. So data that you can collect seem little, but it has a big meaning for us in research. And then obviously in the next step to have conservation for those animals. How does it work? Very simple. You download the app, you go diving, you count the animals that you see, if it's sharks, if it's different ray species, different turtle species, the sunfish we're monitoring, the Galapagos, and others. So you count them, you come up from your dive, you submit it, you put it in your app, and then this data can be drawn out with the different projects. So we have different shark projects in the Galapagos. We have turtle researchers that are researching the population in the Galapagos. Sunfish, so that is a new group that we have now since 3-4 years in the Galapagos. So they are very eager to get information about sunfish as well. So it is very easy to get involved. As I said, this program is now rolled out into Costa Rica as well as Mexico. So if you're going, snorkeling with a whale shark in Mexico or see, other species, you can put it up in the app as well. And of course, it is not necessarily a citizen science project, but when you're coming on a liveaboard, traveling to places that might be very remote, plastic is always a big topic. Try to reduce as much as you can. Plastic pollution is still a really big threat to the marine wildlife as well as the ecosystem itself. Try to reduce your plastic waste, bring your reusable water bottle and bags. Try to participate in cleanups, if it's on the beach or if it's underwater, if you see something, just pick it up. And what often people forget is when you, for example, traveling to a liveaboard like the Galapagos or Russia Humpad, it is very remote and those places don't have the possibility to recycle. So if you're bringing your packaging from your new GoPro or a water bottle from home or anything that is plastic related or batteries, take it back home to your country because there it can be recycled. Countries like Galapagos will not have this possibility. So take it back, and then it can be correctly recycled. So what we're trying to do with our trips and in general is to create ocean ambassadors. So you will, when you're coming on board, how does it look? You will get presentations, obviously, about the Galapagos wildlife. We will talk a little bit more in detail what we know, what we don't know. You get a little bit more insight on the research that is happening in the Galapagos Islands and the conservation efforts that are happening. And it does deepen your understanding of the marine wildlife as well as the ecosystem itself. We will, of course, go a little bit more in detail in each citizen science program. So you will look into what exactly is contributed, how does it help, which significance it has to participate in each individual citizen science program. And it is obviously a full on. So you go diving, you collect your data, you will do it during your trip that you put it into the app. For example, the shark count. We will look over the photos if we have some ID photos. You're always invited to also bring old photos. So if you saw already manta rays because you traveled somewhere else, or sea turtles or sunfish, bring them with you so we can upload it and we can help you where to put the information. And with that, you obviously have the possibility when you upload your IDs, or we do it from our trip, to stay in contact with an animal, like a wireshark, like a manta. And I think sometimes creates a personal bond because you track this animal. So if it's resided somewhere in the world, you will get a notification. And it stays in contact with the ones that you saw. The involvement that you have is obviously ongoing, doesn't stop when you leave the trip, right? So you learn a little bit more how you can support conservation, not maybe only about oceans if you're not living close to the oceans, but there's so many citizen science programs, so many research projects, probably just in your neighborhood where you can help. Because often it's not necessarily, only the data collection, but often, research projects like us that do not have the possibility to do social media. And maybe you say, I'm not that bad in social media, and you can support a research project maybe with the gift that you have and to help with things that are usually not as present in research programs. So you can help. So your engagement as an ambassador goes on. Of course, you will talk about what you experienced, what you saw when you're returning home, and you're sharing your passion about the oceans with your friends, with your family. You at the same time will create awareness, and that goes on because now you're involved, and maybe next time your friend is involved, and next time their friends are involved, and then obviously it will spread and we can make a difference together. And to summarize is basically to say, participate wherever you can in citizen science projects. So if you're going diving with us and you get all the information, and next time you go to Mexico and you see a wireshark or a manta ray or whatever, I got a photo, there's the data bank, I can upload it, just try it. Or when you're going to Africa on land, there's so many citizen science programs, just go online. Often just Google the national park. They have often very, very good information already there. Be an ambassador, be an ocean ambassador, contribute with citizen science to marine research. But wherever you go, you obviously have possibilities to make an impact whatever you can give them as a project. Spread the word. Talk with others, share your passion, your love for the oceans, and I'm sure you can inspire other people to do so as well. And wherever you go, always travel environmentally conscious, reduce plastic, be always respectful with the flora and fauna, and of course with the marine wildlife. Try to make, wherever you travel, wherever you dive, wherever you go, to ensure just to make a minimal of impact for the environment, and maybe leave it better as it was before. Because with all of that, what we talk, it is important, but of course it is also important to have an unforgettable experience. And I think the goal for us is to show you which citizen science programs there are, to make your experience even more unique. It is already incredible to dive in a place like Galapagos, but to make it in a meaningful way and to kind of give back to the environment makes it even more lasting for yourself. So yeah, try to make it good and make a difference for the oceans. And with that, I would go back. So my screen away, and would invite everyone back and maybe start with the question why it was important for you when you traveled, for example, with us, why it was important for you to participate in citizen science programs, and how did it feel for you? And maybe we start with Maria, if you like. So you unmute.
Jenny. I will start from a broader picture. I really liked what you said about, being conscious and just respecting the ocean and doing something to help save it. I would say just be conscious in general for the whole planet. It doesn't mean only to the ocean, forests, ocean, anywhere you go. And just trying to be a better person by, collecting trash if you see it. How, let's say in the Galapagos, under the water, if you see something, just pick it up. Last time, when we traveled with you guys, we found a mask, an old one. It has been under the water for some time, I remember. And then some other minor things, but they were very, very minimal. Whenever I travel around the world, my husband and I, we always go out to the beaches or, even forests, jungles, anywhere we go, we always collect trash and bring it with us. And I remember when I traveled to Antarctica with you guys, and Jonathan was our expedition leader. Before buying that tour, I did such an extensive research about companies and just in general what they do, how they try to protect the nature, what are their policies, because that's a number one thing for me. I'm an environmentalist. I studied environmental science, so it applies to any company that I try to work with, that I buy tours from, that I travel, or even in general that I buy clothes from. I try to avoid any sort of fast fashion or anything that will put a negative impact on our planet and animals and oceans. I try to educate people whenever I travel if they see me doing something. I lived in Japan for 3 years, and Japanese beaches are just horrible. I went to Okinawa and just around Tokyo, and I've been all over Japan, and the beaches are crazy. So I would go out to collect trash, and I remember these 2 small children coming up to me and asking me in Japanese, what am I doing? I said, well, you see, there's lots of trash and all these candies, wraps and plastic. I said, birds will eat it, then it will go into the ocean. And I just explained them the little cycle of this plastic situation happening. And they looked at me and they're like, oh, can we help you? I said, of course, come on, join in. And I almost started crying. I was like, okay, we need, kids like this who are active and who care about nature. So, knowing about your program back from Antarctica, I knew right away, okay, these are the people that I want to go to Galapagos with, and I will not exchange these people for anyone else, because I know for a fact that they're doing something important for the ocean. And in future, now, we're looking into these other locations that we want to travel to, but I just, I need to do my very, very extensive research in order to sign up and be like, okay, this is the company that I trust. They're not gonna throw away plastic from board or something like that. And then they will educate people from not touching animals and hugging them and doing any sorts of negative activities for the environment.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thanks for the great feedback. Who else would like to give your why it's important for you to do citizen science? Yeah, Jean?
When like Maria, I did some research before I went to the Galapagos to figure out what operator I'd like to go with. but I was a little more focused on what's going to be the best experience for me in diving. And as I did that research, I discovered the Whale Shark Project folks, Jenny and everybody, and looked at how they approach things and thought, boy, this sounds perfect, because I like to think I'm environmentally sensitive. And at any rate, there was no doubt that it was a really excellent decision in terms of the diving experience. That goes without question. But one of the things I did not expect to happen was to learn about the citizen scientist program, and a lot of the presentations they gave on board about the environment and the oceans and that sort of thing gave me an awareness that I couldn't possibly have gotten on my own, just stumbling into information. I sit here in landlocked Tennessee. I don't count the Mississippi River as a water body, but it is. And we do have lots of lakes and rivers. And not only have I become more sensitive to the ocean, but also to all the bodies of water around where I live. And it's opened my eyes to things I, again, never thought I would. But back to the ocean part of it, I've become, the things I've learned on the 4 trips I've made each year, I learned something new. And the whole experience has really broadened my own thinking about the world and what we can do to help protect it. So it's been an awesome experience, and I want to keep that going.
Thank you very much, Shane. Very cool. Laura, you want to say something? Oh, wait.
A bit further back. I always loved the ocean, and that's why I started studying biology. And then we went on the trip to Costa Rica, where we met you guys, so Jenny and Jonathan. And that's where I first heard about this citizen science, and it gives just so much. And then a dream came true, and we went to the Galapagos together. And we did all the citizen science parts together. So we counted sharks. We were talking about the encounters with the whale sharks. And it just gave us a good sense in after dive times. So in the periods where you're not diving, you had so much to talk about and so many good discussions. And I remember there was this one time when we had this whale shark that had a net on the fin. And Jonathan removed the net on the fin, which was quite a dangerous action. And it was I feel super lucky to have been an observer of this happening. And then it was a mystical. We saw this same whale shark again. It was like he or she, it was a she. So it was like she would say thank you to us. And this opened my eyes. So this was within a short period of time, but it's so nice to basically be able to see the same whale shark again, and maybe on another part of the world. And it just makes your holidays more valuable, because it's for you such a little effort, I would say, but it means it gives so much to the other world, to the scientists. And also as part of have seen the scientific part, it's so important. I can only say I'm super happy to have had this chance. And
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you. Jeremy?
I mean, I'd say, all the things that everyone said make total sense, and I feel all of them. I think the thing I think about is I was a really bad citizen scientist on particularly the Galapagos trip, because honestly, there were too many hammerheads to count. Just way too many hammerheads to count. And when you see something that's I don't know, maybe 100 meters away, right, and you see just a bunch of shapes, how do you count all of them? You just can't. But I think the thing that I bring home, and isn't that I necessarily need to be that scientist, right? That I can be an advocate for the science, and particularly an advocate for the environment, which is what I heard everyone else saying. And I think what was really special about the trips that I've taken, and actually had the luck of having both Jenny and Jonathan on both trips, and was just able to ask questions, just questions about animals that were in the water. I remember there were a bunch of black tips that were swimming out next to the boat. And there was a question of whether we should get in the water with them or not. And I'm not really afraid of being in the water with sharks, but I am afraid of being in the water with sharks that have been fed. So it's one of those things where we didn't do it that day, but it was really nice to sort of have that on board and be able to talk to someone about that, and be able to talk to someone about like, okay, we're doing certain, we're going to these places in a boat. What impact is that boat having, and actually having a reasonable answer, and realizing, okay, there is a limit to how many people can actually come on these trips, but it's also like, it's incredibly special. And another place I was, kind of a, not a great shark scientist, but I'm an incredible advocate. Is I only saw a whale shark for about 40 seconds. It just kind of swam in, swam by. But it's one of those things where it's like every time I think of that, like, I don't know, I tell everyone about it, because it was absolutely mind blowing. And knowing that we're there, not to impact these animals, but to appreciate them and to bring that appreciation back, to communicate that to people, to help them understand and connect, their place, their wilds might be out in the forest, right? And that's just as important as the ocean. And it's just a place that you can connect with just about everyone. So yeah, not the best actual scientist, a little bit overwhelmed by the emotion of the situation. But when I come back, it's one of those things where, yeah, I'm a passionate advocate. And yeah, it's one of the greatest experiences.
Thank you, Jeremy. I think what is really good on trips like this is also that you meet like-minded people. And as Laura said, and Maria, I think the discussions that we had on board, I think it's just, yeah, opens the mind to so many more things. Or just like Jean said, also around you. It's not necessarily only the things that you're doing on the trip, but it's how you're going home, and you maybe see your surroundings a little bit different, and where you can help. So yeah, no, thank you so much, you four. I will give the word to Kate and look which questions there are.
Okay, so the first question that came in is someone is asking, is it best to have a slate to count sharks? And do we have slates available on board, or is that something that divers should bring if they would like one?
So we did not have that on the previous trips. However, this season I did invested, and I will bring, I believe I have 8 or 10 with me to just try it if it is helpful underwater. To just, when you see, sometimes I'm coming out of the dive and think, was it 3 turtles or was it 5? Sometimes you don't remember, because as Jeremy said, sometimes it's really overwhelming how many you see. So we will give it a try. So we will have it on board starting this season. To write it down and see if that helps us. However, what I felt often helped me, or still helps me the most, is to do it after each dive. So if I'm missing one dive and then try to do it at the end of the day, it's like it's getting blurry on which dive I saw what. So did I see the hammerheads in the morning, or it's very getting blurry. So what I can recommend, it doesn't matter if it's here, do it directly. If it's photo ID, for example, also when you have photos, try to go through the same day, because often it gets kind of, when you're going home and your normal day life gets in the way, things like that get forgotten. But yeah, we will have that on board.
Beautiful. Another question came in about, will we have access to internet on board? And yeah, they were just kind of wondering how that would impact the citizen science aspect of the trip.
Yes, so since starting this season, the vessel has Starlink on board. So it is internet on board. However, we will have to see how good it is. So we will test it. The ship says it is fine, but obviously I'm not sure if it's this quality to upload photos, but it will work for the Shark app for sure. So we will have internet on board, which gives us obviously a much better connection to do all of those citizen science programs as well. We will start this season as well to have an iPad on board, so that even if you forget to download your Shark app, don't worry, you will have the possibility to put your data on an iPad that we will have on board. So yes, there will be internet.
Okay, the next question that came in is what kind of training or preparation do participants receive before engaging in citizen science activities?
So you don't need, as you heard, any, studies, etc. beforehand. So we will explain everything on board. However, it's often very good to download the app beforehand and to maybe read into the programs if you would like to. But as you heard, many divers often just discover the programs on board. So you don't have to have any special preparation, etc. If you wish to, you can. So like seminars, webinars like we had right now are ideal to just prep a little bit what you're expecting, but there's nothing that you necessarily have to do besides downloading the app if you, for example, coming to the Galapagos. And maybe if you don't have it, to get a GoPro or camera to make photos of the animals. But nowadays, most of us have a little camera or a big camera or a GoPro to take your memories with you anyway.
Okay, another question that came in was, and I think most of our host guests answered this, but how does the presence of citizen science enhance the diving experience in the Galapagos? So do you want to maybe just recap, Jenny?
Yeah, I think it deepens a little bit the experience that divers have the animals and the environment they see. But actually, it's probably not I'm the best person to answer this question. It's actually more everyone who traveled with us. I don't know if Jean, Laura, or Jeremy, if you want to say how it maybe enhanced your experience, because you're the ones that came as guests. Yeah, Laura.
Connects you a bit, as you said in the presentation, it connects you to the animals, like you are more aware of them, but it also connects each other stronger. I think like you just have stronger bonds also afterwards. And I think you keep in contact with your like co-travelers even longer.
Yeah.
Or maybe you meet them again at some point later,
That's true. Anyone else that would like to add something? How it enhanced your experience? No? No, then let's move on.
Okay, and then one more question came in. I think you covered this, but maybe you can just recap. If I love wildlife and want to be a citizen science or like work towards conservation, but I am not a scuba diver, what are some things that I can do from land, that positively helps marine life in our oceans?
I think two things that I would mention. One, all the citizen science programs that I mentioned are obviously ocean related. However, there are a lot of things that you sometimes can do as a snorkeler or on land. I mean, there's so many projects. So if you're just Googling where either you live or where you're going as a holiday, Google if it's maybe a national park or which programs around there. Maybe see if there are research projects. So there are so many animals that are endangered where researchers researching the animal, but the same what is on the water is often also on land, that researchers can't be the whole time around these animals because it's maybe a place like Africa what's very hard to reach. But if you're going as a tourist there's so many animals where exactly the same counts like with the fingerprint. So go online and depending on where you're going, have a look for citizen science programs. And then on the other hand, as Jean said, he's not living close to the ocean, but he has lakes, he has rivers, and there's so many other projects that are around there that you probably most likely even around you where you live will have a research program around you where you can support it. So just here around, and even if you're not supporting it only with data collection, Laura, for example, that is joining us right now in the call, she's supporting since a few months the Galapagos wireshark project, so the research part that we have in the Galapagos, in social media, because that is often something that many research projects are not very good in. And if you say, I'm not that bad in social media, I can help with that, that is a huge support for many, many research programs as well. So there's so many ways where you can help and to enhance environment, to help research projects, and then basically getting to the last step to create conservation for animals that need it. And of course, the earth and the oceans that needs it. Yeah.
And then the last question I see, and maybe this is a good segue into encouraging people to join the webinar on Sunday, but are there any ongoing collaborations with research institutions or universities for these projects?
Yes, so our company, Galapagos Shark Diving, is in cooperation with the Galapagos Wireshark Project. So the Galapagos Wireshark Project is studying the wiresharks in the Galapagos, which is a very, very unique population, but we will talk more about in detail on Sunday, where we give a little bit more on updates, because we are right now in the final preparations to go to the Galapagos. The research trip for this year will be end of June. So as I said, it is really just 2 weeks the year where we can afford to be up in Darwin, where we do see wiresharks. So again, encouragement to, when you're going to Galapagos and we're going to Darwin and you see wiresharks, please, please, please give us IDs, because that is really crucial data that we need. But yes, that is a very, very much bond that we have. We support on the one hand with photo IDs, but also Galapagos Shark Diving is basically collecting donations for the project itself. So you not only be active in data collection, but by traveling with us, all our profits will be donated as a donation towards the research projects. And that gives us the possibility as researchers then to go out and do the research that we need to do. So yeah. And more on Sunday.
Those are all the questions I'm seeing at this time. Unless anyone else has any last minute questions, I'll be checking the
Perfect.
chats.
Well, with then, if there would be any more question, we are available on info@galapagossharkdiving.com. When you have a question, write it by email. All the webinars that we had so far, that was a question I got several times now by email, will be uploaded. So we'll have all the social media channels where you saw us live. It will be uploaded as video. Some like Facebook and YouTube don't do it automatically, so they are already uploaded. On Instagram, we'll do it and upload it afterwards. So there we will be having as well as on the webpage. So we're uploading there as well if you missed anyone and you wanted to hear it. And with that, I thank you very much, everyone who joined us today. Jeremy, Jean, Laura, Maria, Kate, thank you so much for your support, and everyone who listened to us. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.